Today we are going to revise English home language. This is paper 2. Welcome to my classroom. I am Sir Rudolph Mathumbu. I am a professional teacher. I hold a degree in education and I am SAYS registered. If you need revision with all caps aligned subjects, you are in the right place. Please subscribe for more revisions. If you need private tutoring, please contact me using the contact details provided in the description of this video. Okay, let's get into today's lesson. So let's go through the instructions. The instructions in this paper says, this paper is made up of section A, which is a comprehension, and section B, which is language in context. All right. Answer all questions on the question paper. So all questions should be answered. It means you don't choose. Use the number of marks as a guide to the detail needed in your answer. So the number of marks that you see on the right hand side of your question always tells you how much of details do they want for that question. You may not use a dictionary, so you are not allowed to use a dictionary during this assessment. Write neatly and legibly. Then your work should be neat, your work should be legible, meaning that it should be something that any person can read and understand with ease. All right, we get straight to section A, which I already stated that is a comprehension. The comprehension says read the text, then read the question. So you read the text, then you read the question, then read the text a second time. After the second time reading, then you answer the question. So how many times are you going to read this text? You will read for the first time, and then you will read for the second time, and then you answer questions. Okay, let's get to it. Josephine Kelly was accident prone. Whenever somebody got hurt, you could almost be sure that Josephine was the unfortunate girl who had grazed her knee while playing, had sprained her ankle while getting off her horse, had cut herself while making decorations for party. In the late 1910s, Josephine married Ralph Dixon, a young man who worked for Johnson & Johnson, a company that made gauze and adhesive tapes. During the first week of her marriage, the young Mrs. Dixon cut herself with a knife. After that, things got worse. Her husband became very worried about this. One evening, he sat down and cut adhesive tapes in narrow stripes. In the middle of each stripe, he put a small square of gauze, ready-made bandages for his accident-prone wife. Soon after that, the The people at Johnson and Johnson heard about these handy little bandages. The company started manufacturing these, and in 1924, the company started selling these under the name Band-Aid. Today, we can find these handy little bandages in almost every first aid box all over the world. All right, so we have read for the first time the passage. Okay, now that we have read for the first time the passage, let us read it for the second time as the instructions say. For the second time, Josephine Kelly was accident prone. Whenever somebody got hurt, you could almost be sure that Josephine was the unfortunate girl who had grazed her knee while playing, had sprained her ankle while getting off her horse, or had cut herself while making decorations for a party. In the late 1910s, Josephine married Ralph Dixon, a young man who worked for Johnson and Johnson, a company that made gauze and adhesive tapes. During the first week of her marriage, the young Mrs. Dixon cut herself with a knife. After that, things got worse. Her husband became very worried about this. One evening, he sat down and cut adhesive tapes into narrow stripes. In the middle of each stripe, he put a small square of gauze. Ready-made bandages for his accident-prone wife. Soon after that, the people of Johnson & Johnson heard about these handy little bandages. The company started manufacturing these, and in 1924, the company started selling these under the name Band-Aid. Today, we can find these handy little bandages in almost every first aid box all over the world. All right, let's get to the questions. Question 1. Question 1 says, what do we call someone who often hurts themselves by accident? What do we call someone who often hurt themselves by accident? We say, according to the passage, we say that person is accident prone. No, this is wrong. We say he's accident prone. He is, or she is, or they are prone to accidents. So that person is accident prone. All right. So question 2 says, name 3 ways in which Josephine hurt herself. So 3 ways that Josephine hurt herself. If we remember, they say she grazed her knee. She grazed her knee while playing. So the second one, she sprained She sprained her ankle. So she sprained her ankle while getting off her horse. And last, she cut herself while making decorations for party. So while making decorations for party. We move to question 3. Question 3 says, what was Ralph Dixon's wife's maiden name? If you go back to the comprehension, you will see that she was called Josephine Kelly. So her maiden name was Kelly. All right, number 4. What was the name of the company where Ralph Dixon worked? It was Johnson and Johnson. So it was Johnson and Johnson. We go to question number 5. Question 5 says, explain how Mr. Dixon made ready-made bandages. So if you remember, they said Ralph Dixon made bandages for his wife. So he cut adhesive. They are adhesive tapes into narrow stripes, and then they put a small square of gauze in the middle. That is question number 5. So question 6. When did Johnson and Johnson started selling band-aids? So the time where they started selling the band-aids, it was 1924. That's where they started selling them. So question 7 says, how long have Johnson and Johnson been manufacturing band-aids now? So Johnson and Johnson was selling band-aids for 99 years. For 99 years, they have been selling band-aids. Question 8. Find a word in the story that means this word. So it means you go to the story that we read and you find words that means these words. So when they say something is useful, in the passage you'll remember when they say these handy bandages. So handy means useful. So when they say they were handy, it means they were useful. So B, making. So they said Johnson and Johnson started making these band-aids. So making, it is manufacturing. When you say they make something, they manufacture it. C, scraped. So when you say something has been scraped, in the passage they say she has grazed. She has grazed her knee, if you remember that. Okay. Unlucky. Unlucky is the word unfortunate. So it's unfortunately. Unfortunately. All right, we go to question 9 and we answer it. Question 9 says, what is the main idea in each paragraph? All right. So you can only get this by going back to the comprehension and read it again. But for the sake of time, let's continue. The first paragraph tells us about how Josephine Kelly kept hurting herself by accident. So this tells us, the first paragraph tells us how she kept hurting herself by accident. So when you go to the second paragraph tells us how she, here this one tells us how her husband was worried and made narrow stripes. So the second question tells us, the second paragraph tells us how her husband was worried and he started making narrow stripes. So the third paragraph, let's go to the third paragraph. The third paragraph tells us how Johnson, it's Johnson and Johnson started manufacturing band-aids. So the third paragraph tells us how Johnson and Johnson started manufacturing a band-aid. All right, question 10. Question 10 says, list 2 proper nouns used in the story. Give us 2 proper nouns that were listed in the story. Proper nouns. The first name that we hear is that one of Josephine. So a name of people and things are proper nouns. Josephine is the first one. Even Kelly is the proper noun. Ralph, the husband, is a proper noun. His surname Dixon is a proper noun. Johnson and Johnson. Johnson and Johnson is a proper noun. It's a proper noun. So that's how we answer question 10. So question 11 says, write this sentence over in future tense. So Josephine married Ralph Dixon. So we take this sentence and we want to write it in future tense. How do we say? We say Josephine will shows us that is in the future tense, will marry Ralph Dixon. Question 12. Question 12 says, circle the preposition in the sentence. So we look at these sentences and we circle the prepositions. Look at the sentence and circle the preposition. Prepositions are the words that tell you where something is. So the unfortunate girl grazed her knee while climbing onto. Where was she climbing onto? The climbing frame. So that is our first preposition. Second one, today we can find these little bandages where? In almost every first aid box. So that's how your preposition tells you the position of the subject or what you're talking about. So remember, when you hear preposition, then it means you need to know, like you look for a word that tells you where was that thing placed. So question 13 says, list 4 pronouns from the story. So you list 4 pronouns that are found in the story. The pronouns that we find in this story are, number 1, her. It's a pronoun that replaces a noun, which is, in the story it was Josephine. Where we didn't want to use her name, we used the pronoun her. So we had he. He is a pronoun that we used when we wanted to replace the name of Ralph. Then we have his. His is a pronoun. We have you. You is a pronoun. And herself. Herself is a pronoun as well. Question 14. List 2 adjectives from the story. Adjectives. The adjectives that we find in the story are young. The first one, young. Young tells us how the man was. He was a young man. So it's a descriptive word. Small. Small tells us how big the bandages were. They were small. Narrow. Narrow is an adjective as well. Middle. Middle, it is an adjective. Little is an adjective. First is an adjective. But remember, they want 2. But if you got any of these 2, you are correct and you got it right. All right, let's quickly move to section B. Section B. So section B says, change the indirect speech to direct. So here you are expected to change this sentence, which are indirect speech, to direct. Dad said that we should be quiet. That is indirect speech. So when you want to write it as a direct speech, you say Dad said, and then you put your quotation marks, show that you're quoting Dad what he said. And what did he say? He said, be quiet. So that is a direct speech. All right, we come to B. B says, Bongi wanted to know what you like. Bongi wanted to know whether you like sweets. So here we say, do you like sweets? So this sounds direct because this sounds like the way the person would have said. So and then you say Bongi asked, or you can say asked Bongi. So that will be correct. So we come to question 2. Question 2 says, circle the adverb in each sentence. The first sentence, Abdul jumped further than Zandi yesterday. So what is the adverb here? The adverb here is further. We hear that Abdul jumped, but further, the adverb tells us how the verb was done. It gives us the degree of the verb. All right. The second one, I was so scared that I ran away as fast as my legs would carry me. He ran away, but how did he run away? As fast as his legs could carry him. So fast is our adverb. Then we go to question 3. Question 3 says, identify the figure of speech. So you tell us these words, what kind of figure of speech are used here? My dog is as big as a horse. As big as a horse. What is that? When you see your as, you like, you know that is a simile. That is a simile because it likens a dog to a horse. So it shows it likens them. It likens them. Okay, number 2. Money doesn't grow on trees. So money doesn't grow on trees. What is it? When you say money doesn't grow on trees, what kind of figure of speech is that? It is an idiom. It is an idiom. Then if you say money does not grow on trees, you are using an idiom. Okay, now we are doing question 4. Question 4 says, join the 2 sentences below by adding an appropriate conjunction. So you add appropriate conjunction. Mary did well in her test. Mary studied hard. So what kind of a conjunction are we going to use to put here to join these two sentences? Mary did well in her test, and the conjunction is because. Mary studied hard. So Mary did well in her course because she studied. That's how we join those two sentences. Number 5 says, write these sentences over in the past tense. So I love jumping into the water when the weather is hot. So the past tense of this is I loved jumping into the water when the weather was. Now we say was. Instead of is, we say was hot because now it is past tense. B says, we will sing and clap our hands using music. Past tense says, we, instead of will, we would sing. We would sing and clap our hands using music. So that is the correct past tense version of this sentence. Then we go to the final question, which is question 6. Question 6 says, rewrite this sentence with the correct punctuation. So the sentence that is here, it's not well punctuated. So we need to rewrite it in a proper manner. All right, let's go through it. The first letter here, it's not capital letter, so we know that every time when we start a sentence we use a capital letter. So we're supposed to say when, then do, the. Another mistake, September here. September is the name of a noun. It's a name of a month. So a name always has a capital letter. It starts with a capital letter. So we're supposed to say September, holidays start so that I can sleep late. So we say sleep late, and then we'll put a comma after that. And then now we continue. Sleep late, swim, and have fun. So you say swim and have fun. So this sentence is a question. So it means at the end of this question, we'll have to put a question mark. So this is properly punctuated. Now it reads, when do the September holidays start so that I can sleep late, swim, and have fun? So this is well punctuated, and that's how they were expecting us to correct the punctuation. Thanks for watching this video up until this point. It shows that you are serious about your education. Remember, if you want to learn something, repetition is the mother of all learning. So it is very important that you keep on repeating this video until you grasp all the concepts that are explained here. If you feel that there are some things that I didn't cover in this video, please do not hesitate to put it in the comment section.